there any discussion? Call the question. The motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. There are a number of cases on today's printed agenda which have been continued or held by the staff or the Planning Commission, and this list of cases will not be heard today. First case is rezoning case Z78 of 2021, Ray Murphy. This case was held by the Planning Commission until the May 3rd, 2022 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So Z48 of 2021 will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z83 of 2021, St. Burke. This case was continued by staff until the May 3rd, 2022 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So Z83 of 2021 will not be heard today. SLUP-3 of 2021, Ray Murphy. This case was held by the Planning Commission until the May 3rd, 2022 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So SLUP-3 of 2021 will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z7 of 2022, KM Homes. This case was held by the Planning Commission until the May 3rd, 2022 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So Z7 of 2022 will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z19 of 2022, New Buddies LLC. This case was continued by the staff until the May 3rd, 2022 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So Z19 of 2022 will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z20 of 2022, Francisco Padilla. This case was continued by staff until the May 3rd, 2022 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So Z20 of 2022 will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z21 of 2022, Francisco Padilla. This case was continued by staff until the May 3rd, 2022 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So Z21 of 2022 will not be heard today. SLEP 5 of 2022, Parallel Towers 3, LLC, also known as Parallel Infrastructure LLC. This case was continued by the staff until the May 3rd, 2022 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So SLEP 5 of 2022 will not be heard today. Madam Chair and Board, there are two cases on today's other business agenda that do need to be continued.
Okay.
First case is other business item number 9 of 2022, Vanderland Industries Incorporated. Madam Chair and Board, we did get a traffic study late on this last week, so the staff would ask the board to continue this case until your next zoning hearing.
Okay, Commissioner Burrow.
Yes, thank you, John. Make a motion to continue OB9 until the May zoning hearing.
I'll second it. Is there any discussion? Call the question. The motion passes 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you. Second case that needs a continuance is other business item number 15, Mountain Prize Incorporated. There are development issues they need to work on, Madam Chair and Board, so the staff would ask you to continue other business item number 15 until your May 17th zoning hearing.
All right. Commissioner Gambrill.
I'd like to make a motion that we continue OB 15 of 2022 until the May hearing dates. Second.
All right. Any discussion? Call the question. The motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. I do have a few more announcements to make before we actually begin the agenda. I would like to ask everyone in today's audience, if you have a cell phone, please turn the volume off on your cell phone as the ringing does interfere with the broadcast and the presentations. And any person wishing to speak before the Board of Commissioners must file a campaign contribution disclosure statement. If they made a campaign contribution in excess of $250 within 2 years of the zoning application. Additional information about this requirement is located on the table in the back of the room. And I want to remind applicants, opposition, or any interested party that information is due to this board the Wednesday prior to this date. Any information submitted after the Wednesday due date may or may not be considered by the board at their discretion. And with that, Madam Chair and Board, I'm ready to start the consent agenda.
Thank you.
Cobb County Board of Commissioners zoning hearing consent agenda for April 19th, 2022. First case on consent is rezoning case Z5, Weeping Schneider, America 101 LLC. Request a rezoning from R20 to RD for a duplex in land lot 85 of the 16th district. The property is located on the north side of Old Noonday Schoolhouse Road, west of Canton Road. The Planning Commission recommends approval of Z5 to the RD zoning district, subject to the following conditions. Number 1, site plan received by the zoning division on November 19th, 2021, with the district commissioner approving minor modifications. Number 2, existing structure to be used as a duplex only. Number 3, fire department comments and recommendations. Number 4, stormwater management division comments and recommendations. Number 5, water and sewer division comments and recommendations. Number 6, Department of Transportation comments and recommendations. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed? Rezoning case Z5.
No.
Let the record show there's no one here opposed. Rezoning case Z5. Rezoning case Z16, Carl Courtmeyer requests a rezoning from O&I to R15 for a single-family residence in land lots 33 and 34 of the 17th district. The property is located on the north side of Clay Road, west of Floyd Road. The Planning Commission recommends approval of Z16 to the R15 zoning district, subject to the following conditions. Number 1, letter from the Maplewood Improvement Coalition dated March 30th, 2022. Number 2, building architecture to be approved by the district commissioner. Number 3, fire department comments and recommendations. Number 4, stormwater management division comments and recommendations. Number 5, water and sewer division comments and recommendations. Number 6, Department of Transportation comments and recommendations. And number 7, variances identified in the zoning division comments. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed? Rezoning case Z16.
No.
Let the record show there's no one opposed. We can wait to the end. Okay, next case is rezoning case Z17, Tyler Chandler Homes LLC. Request rezoning from RSL and LRO to RSL for a residential senior living, non-supportive residential subdivision in land lot 122 of the 20th district. The property is located on the south side of McClure Road, on the west side of Aqueduct Road. Planning Commission recommends approval of Z17 to the RSL zoning district, subject to the following conditions. Number 1, all staff comments and recommendations, including but not limited to Department of Transportation and Stormwater Management Division. Number 2, letter of agreeable conditions from Mr. Kevin Moore dated March 30th, 2022 shall apply where not in conflict with the staff comments or those stated here as modified by the superseding conditions and provisions. Number 3, as to setbacks, all units shall include garages. The closest point on the face of any garage to the curb or sidewalk shall not be less than 25 feet. This is to allow for sufficient room to park for cars to be parked. All garages are to be wide enough to fit 2 cars, with the final dimensions to be approved by the district commissioner. All driveways shall be wide enough to hold 2 cars, with the final width to be determined by the district commissioner on the final plan. Number 4, from the March 30th, 2022 stipulation letter, delete item number 15 and replace with the following. County standards as to the widths of the road be used in all circumstances, with final approval of the precise width of the road to be determined by the district commissioner in consultation with the County Department of Transportation. And number 5, all guest parking shall be parallel rather than perpendicular as recommended by the County Department of Transportation. The applicant is present. Is there anyone here opposed? Rezone case Z17.
No.
Let the record show there's no one opposed. Rezoning case Z22, first property.
John, one moment. Commissioner Gamble would like to make a comment.
I'd like to make a couple of changes to that, and I can give you the letter. As far as there's 2 stipulations, the one, it was number 3, the 25-foot, I'd like to have that changed to 22, which is in alignment with county standards. And then also, I guess there was discussion, staff is okay, our DOT staff is okay with the hammerhead design that is shown on the site plan, and I would like to allow that to stand. I can give you the email that I received from Kevin Moore dated April 13th of 2022, and then my response on April 14th of 2022 to that. And then, Mr. Moore, did I address your concerns?
Okay, the applicant raised his hand in agreement.
Okay. Next case is rezoning case Z22, First Property Asset Managers LLC. Request rezoning from LRC to R20 for a single-family residence in land lot 85 of the 16th district. The property is located on the north side of Old New Day Schoolhouse Road, west of Canton Road. The Planning Commission recommends deletion of Z22 to RD, subject to the following conditions. Number 1, Site plan received by the zoning division on February 3rd, 2022, with the district commissioner approving minor modifications. Number 2, existing structure to be used as a duplex or single-family use only. Number 3, fire department comments and recommendations. Number 4, stormwater management division comments and recommendations. Number 5, water and sewer division comments and recommendations. And number 6, Department of Transportation comments and recommendations. The applicant is present. Is there anyone here opposed to rezoning case Z22?
No.
Let the record show there's no one opposed. Moving into land use permits on the consent agenda, LUP 7, Gregory D. Bowen requests a temporary land use permit to allow temporary occupancy of an RV in land lot 146 of the 20th district. The property is located on the east side of Mars Hill Church Road, south of Wood Station Run. The Planning Commission recommends approval of LUP 7 for 12 months, subject to the following conditions. Number 1, if the building permit expires due to lack of inspections, the approval will be revoked. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to LUP 7?
No.
Let the record show there's no one opposed. And moving into other business items on the consent agenda. First item is other business item number 11 of 2022, which is to consider a site plan amendment for Valvoline Instant Oil Change regarding rezoning application Z20 of 1985 for property located on the northwest corner of Roswell Road and Johnson Ferry Road. Staff recommends approval, subject to the following conditions. Number 1, fire department comments contained in the other business packet. Number 2, site plan contained in the other business packet received March 7th, 2022, with the district commissioner for minor modifications. And number 3, development plans emailed on April 14th, 2022. The applicant is present. Is there anyone here opposed to other business item number 11?
No.
Let the record show there's no one opposed.
Yes, just some additional items to add. So wanted to make sure that the letter submitted by East Cobb Civic Association, April 14th, was also submitted into the record. So there is a copy here. This includes several stipulations around the site plan, hours of operations, and construction. Also includes some stipulations around elevations, landscape plan, irrigation plan, and photometric plan. And I would like to amend this letter to strike bullet point 2 under the photometric plan dated 2.10 that was provided. So that, yes. Is that, do I need to read through each one?
No, just hand the clerk the letter and we'll
Thank
put that
you.
into the record.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is the applicant here for that matter? Okay, are you comfortable with the changes? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next item is other business item number 13 of 2022, which is to consider a stipulation amendment for Jason and Allison Bunnan regarding rezoning application Z11 of 1993 for property located on the east end of Chartlead Circle and on the west side of Trails End Road in land lot 102 of the 1st District. Staff recommends approval, subject to number 1, site plan received March 11, 2022, that shows the fencing and buffer encroachments, and number 2, stormwater management comments contained in the other business packet. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to other business item number 13?
No.
Let the record show there's no one opposed. Other business item number 14 of 2022 is to consider a stipulation and site plan amendment for Stephen T. Ellis Pro Building Systems Incorporated regarding rezoning application Z65 of 2013 for property located on the east side of Barrett Lakes Boulevard, the west side of I-75, and on the south side of Big Shanty Road in land lots 505 and 506 of the 16th District. Staff recommends approval, subject to the following conditions. Number 1, site plan received March 14th, 2022, with the district commissioner approving minor modifications. Number 2, fire department comments contained in the other business packet. And number 3, all previous stipulations not in conflict to remain in effect. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to other business item number 14?
No.
Let the record show there's no one opposed. Other business item number 17 of 2022 is to consider a stipulation amendment for Toll Southeast LP Company Incorporated regarding rezoning application Z56 of 2017 for property located at the northern terminus of Wiggly Road, north of Summertop Road in land lots 26, 27, 46, and 47 of the 16th District. Staff recommends approval, subject to the following conditions. Number one, Exhibit B contained in the other business packet. Number two, Fire Department comments contained in the other business packet. And number three, all previous stipulations not in conflict with this amendment to remain in effect. The applicant is present. Is there anyone here opposed to other business item number 17?
No.
Let the record show there's no one opposed.
John? Commissioner Brown?
Thank you. Yes, last Wednesday, we received a site plan with the lots in question that are highlighted, and I had asked that 2 lots be removed from that list, so I have another site plan today that marks them to file for the record. I just wanted to submit that.
Okay, is the applicant here for this matter? Okay, we comfortable with the changes? Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Next item on consent is other business item number 18 of 2022, which is to consider amending the zoning stipulations
Excuse me.
and site plan relating to Z61 of 2022.
John, there's a clarification needed on that matter. It was requested that we inquire if anyone was opposed to OB 17.
Okay. Is there anyone here opposed to other business item number 17?
No.
Let the record show there's no one opposed.
Thank you.
Other business item number 18 of 2022 is to consider amending the zoning stipulations and the site plan relating to Z61 of 2005 for property located on the northerly side of Cumberland Boulevard between Riverwood Parkway and Cobb Parkway in land lots 977, 978, 1015, and 1016 of the 17th District. Staff recommends approval, subject to the following conditions. Number one, Exhibit B contained in the other business packet. Number two, Fire Department comments contained in the other business packet. And number three, all previous stipulations not in conflict to remain in effect. The applicant is present. Is there anyone here opposed to other business item number 18?
No.
Let the record show there's no one opposed.
All right. Thank you. And I believe we have at least one modification.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Do you need to add to yours?
We'll start with you,
Okay,
Commissioner Shepard,
all right.
and then we'll work our way down.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I would like to amend Z16 to strike the letter from the Mableton Improvement Coalition dated March 30th, 2022, as a condition adopted by the Planning Commission, and add the following stipulations. 1, remove the sign and the signpost at the front of the primary structure. The district commissioner to approve the exterior paint colors and landscape plan to include a clear delineation of the driveway and parking areas. Conditions 1 and 2 are to be completed no later than June 30th, 2022, and other staff comments and recommendations not in conflict.
Okay, and Commissioner, remind me of the case number?
Z16.
Z16, yes. Is the applicant here for Z16? Sir, are you comfortable with these changes that were read? Sir, if you have any questions, I'm sorry, I'm going to need you to come up and just ask here on the mic so we can hear you clearly. Thank you.
I think that's great. I just want to clarify, there was a time stipulation of 180 days in the initial
No, that was a
wording?
recommendation by the Mableton Improvement Coalition.
I heard June, and I was like, ooh, I don't know how many, it's like 3 months? Is that
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Should be-
Do you need more time? Again, that
You give me-
180
you give me one more
days.
month,
Hold
it'll be
on
great.
one sec. That 180 days was a recommendation by the Mableton Improvement Coalition.
I got you, okay.
So that's just a civic organization and their recommendation.
All right.
I have a stipulation of June 30th, but if you need more time, now is the time to let me know that.
If one more month would be easy to take any kind of concern I might have.
Okay, so how about July 31st, 2022?
Thank you very much.
Okay, fantastic. Conditions 1 and 2 are to be completed no later than July 31st, 2022.
All right. Does that conclude your new conditions?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Burrow, did you have any changes?
I think.
I'm going to just walk down.
Okay.
Just so I can keep in order.
I have one to add to consent with some
do I.
additional.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, this is Z18. Z18,
Okay, can I go read that in first, Commissioner? Can I read it in first?
yes.
Okay.
Sorry.
Rezoning case Z18, Propco Liberty LLC requests rezoning from GC to NRC for retail and a specialty contractor in land lot 660 of the 16th District. The property is located on the south side of Liberty Hill Road, east of Kent Road. The applicant is present. Is there anyone here opposed to rezoning case Z18?
No.
As the record shows, no one opposed.
Okay, now you ready? Okay, I would like to add the following stipulations. Delete to NRC with landscaper moving out by January 31st, 2023. Operational hours for loading and unloading, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Retail hours, 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. Paving where gravel is currently to be paved upon redevelopment, and that will be determined in plan review. Sidewalks upon redevelopment, privacy fence, landscaping to be approved. Privacy fence, landscaping to come back to District Commissioner for approval with review by county arborists and Canton Road neighbors. And 90 days from today's date, if approved, the painting, landscaping, and fencing to be completed. And the applicant is here. And are you agreeable to all those? Thank you. And I'll give this to the clerk.
Thank you, Commissioner. Does that conclude all of your changes?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Richardson.
Thank you. I just have a correction to be submitted, and I have the letter. There's some square footage discrepancies on one of the site plans, so I'm just going to read in here. Accordingly, Building B will have 296,750 square feet of residential square footage remaining, not the 411,000 as identified on the plan. Sorry, OB 18. Thank you. Also want to add in.
Before you do that, is the applicant okay with the changes read in? Kevin, I feel like you should probably.
Yeah, just stay up here.
Okay, yes. Matter of fact, please stay close. There's another one.
Yes, those are perfectly acceptable. For Z18 that Commissioner Burrow read out,
Yes,
I just
sir.
want to make sure the motion includes the stipulation letter from March 30th.
Yeah, that,
I know she intended it, but I just want to make sure.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
Well, I think that should be in John's.
Right, it should, but I just
Well,
want to make sure.
yes, I'll add that, and also Canton Road neighbors letter.
That's fine, thank you.
Does the clerk have that?
Yes, that
Okay.
that is agreeable.
Thank you.
And then one additional stipulation on OB 18, and that is District 2 approval on the final site elevations.
And yes, that is very much agreeable, thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, do you have any other changes, Commissioner?
Don't
You're
go
good?
anywhere, Kevin.
Commissioner Hill?
I'd like to add OB 19. If you can read it in,
Let me
please.
read it in the record. Other business, item number 19 of 2022 is to consider a stipulation amendment for Beazer Homes LLC regarding Z8 of 2021, located in land lots 66, 83, and 84 in the 19th District. The property is located on the south side of Dallas Highway, on the east side of Makana Road, and on the west side of Lost Mountain Road. The applicant is present. Is there anyone here opposed to other business, item number 19? The director shows no one opposed.
Okay, so I would like to, my motion will be to approve the other business item request to remove or I'm sorry, not to remove, to waive curb, gutter, and sidewalk along McConnell Road frontage. And then also to waive construction of the 10-foot section of the multi-use trail and 3-foot grass strip along the frontage of Dallas Highway. And then number 2, the applicant shall be required to pay all applicable fee in lieu per DOT comments 1E and 2B that were emailed on April 13th at 9:17 a.m. by Amy Diaz.
Okay, is the applicant here for OB 19?
That's Kevin.
Kevin, are you agreeable to those changes? I'm seeing a nod. And just for clarification, Commissioner Gamble read that as a form of a motion. We are adding that to consent. Do we need to have a separate motion, or can we include that with the in-bank?
Because we don't have a motion to approve the consent yet, we can wrap it all into one motion.
Okay, thank you. All right, thank you, Commissioner. Do you have any other changes? Okay, thank you. Commissioner Sheffield.
And we do have one more to add to consent, Madam Chair and Board. That's other business item number 10 of 2022, which is to consider a settlement of litigation for Lake Properties Incorporated regarding rezoning application Z9 of 2019 in land lots 413 and 476 of the 19th District. The property is located on the southeasterly side of Powder Springs Road and on the northeasterly side of Brandon Lee Drive. The applicant is present. Is there anyone here opposed to other business item number 10? So
We do have a couple hands in opposition.
We'll just leave that on regular then. Okay.
Thank you.
So for the folks here in opposition, we're just going to leave that in its normal order and hear it later on this morning.
Thank you. John, we've had a number of changes to consent. May you please just help in talking through the application numbers so I can have those numbers?
Okay.
Thank you.
We just want to talk about the ones that we added to consent?
Yes,
Okay.
please.
We added Z18 of 2022 to consent.
Okay.
We added other business item number 19 of 2022 to consent.
Okay.
And other business 9 and 15 were continued.
Continued.
So we're going to
And
hear 10 and 12 today.
Other business 9 and 15 were continued. Okay, thank you. Commissioner Burrow, did you have another comment? Okay. With that, Commissioners, I move that we approve the consent agenda as revised.
Second.
Is there any further discussion? Call the question. The motion passes 5-0. Thank you. For anyone here for any of the consent items, you are free to leave at this time. We will not have any further discussion on those matters.
Okay. And Madam Chair and Board, the next zoning case also has a companion special land use permit with it. Would it be the board's desire to hear both cases together and then just make separate motions on each case? Okay. I'll read them both in at the same time then.
Please, I'm seeing consensus, yes.
Rezoning case Z78 of 2021, St. Benedict's Episcopal School, request rezoning from O&I and R20 to O&I for a school in land lot 695 of the 17th District. The property is located on the east and north side of Daniel Street and on the west side of Cooper Lake Road. Together with its companion special land use permit number 11, St. Benedict's Episcopal School, request a special land use permit for a school in land lot 695 of the 17th District. The property is located on the east and north side of Daniel Street and on the west side of Cooper Lake Road. The applicant is present. Can I get a show of people here who are opposed to rezoning case Z78 and SLUP-11? Please stand up and raise your hands. Let the record show there are 3 people here in opposition. 4? Okay, let the record show there's 4 people here opposed to rezoning case Z78 and SLUP-11 of 2021. Can I get a show of people here who are in support of rezoning case Z78 and SLUP-11? Please stand up, raise your hand. Let the record show there's 48 people here in support of rezoning case Z78 and SLUP-11 of 2021. All those folks who wish to address the board, please come forward to be sworn in.
Is there no one here to address the board other than the applicant?
Brian, did you get sworn in? Okay.
And again, remember, this is for Z78 and SLUP-1. Yes, ma'am, I know she was here for another matter. And again, this case has had so much attention, I'm sure everyone's aware you have 10 minutes to, for the applicant and for those in support to speak, and then 10 minutes for opposition. All right. Go ahead, Commissioner.
Just SLUP-11, Z78. No one is here for opposition to speak?
Are you here to speak in opposition? Yes. Okay, then please, yes, you are requested to come down to be sworn in. Thank you, Commissioner. All right, thank you. Kevin, go ahead.
Madam Chair and Commissioners, I'm Kevin Moore. I'm here and pleased to represent St. Benedict's Episcopal School in this application for rezoning a special land use permit for their development of a relocated middle school at their campus off of Cooper Lake Road. Generally, who is St. Benedict's Episcopal School? If you are not aware, St. Benedict's Episcopal School is centered just off of Atlanta Road on Cooper Lake Road. It is a Episcopal day school through preschool through 8th grade, focused on inspired learning, nurturing growth, embracing the values of Episcopal education as it is a religious school. But it produces what they consider to be scholars that are confident, courageous, compassionate leaders, respectful of diversity, and grounded in their faith. Now, what exactly is the purpose of this proposal for rezoning and special land use permit? It is to relocate the existing middle school, which is located at the south end of Cooper Lake and Weaver Street, and we'll show you that in a minute, just for the 5th to 8th grades. That's moving the students from a current location to this new location at the intersection of Cooper Lake and Daniel Street. The zoning maximum of number of students we are proposing is 240 maximum students at this location. That is reduced from the initial application that was 350 students. And where exactly are we talking about? Again, as you look at this slide and see where this area is and what makes up this area. Along the middle is Atlanta Road, running north to south. Along the bottom is Cumberland Parkway. At the top, you'll see the highlighted property. That's at the intersection of Cooper Lake Road, Daniel Street, and Atlanta Road. Also, you'll see the main building on Cooper Lake Road where you see the St. Benedict's logo. You see what's also identified as Danco. That's another building where they have their educational facilities and teaching at the south end of Cooper Lake Road. And then you'll see actually South Campus where the middle school is currently housed at the intersection of Weaver and Cooper Lake Road finally. And you see that's all along this stretch is St. Benedict's School, Episcopal School. They have been operating and been a member and a proud member and a working member and partner with this community. Turning to the site plan itself, this is the proposed site plan for the middle school and the 4.2 acres that's located here at this intersection. Again, along the right-hand side is Cooper Lake Road. The bottom is Daniel Street as it curves and heads back to the northwest. The red building that you see is the proposed middle school of about 30,000 square feet. That is a reduction in the prior site plan that had over a 50,000 square feet group of buildings, has now been reduced to 30,000 square feet. So you can see this outline and design for the site plan for the middle school at this location as has been submitted. Importantly, during this entire process, when this first began in 2019 and then was restarted at the end of last year, there has been numerous community meetings, numerous meetings with Cobb DOT, All of that has produced these commitments, which are in our zoning stipulation letter, all but one that I'll speak about. First and primarily, that the entrance and exit should be on Cooper Lake Road only. That is from the community, and that is what they have wanted, and that's what's shown. We also have incorporated a landscape berm across the entirety of our Daniel Street frontage. Again, that landscape berm is a commitment from St. Benedict's and one that was requested by the community. In addition, we provided for sidewalks, crosswalks, lighting, as well as ensuring that our detention and stormwater will tie into the existing drainage system and accommodate all of Cobb County stormwater comments and recommendations. Lastly, a commitment today that I want to make sure that you are aware of. We have made this known to Cobb DOT. St. Benedict's, upon approval, is willing to contribute $200,000, a significant sum, to the off-site system improvements that are needed at the intersection of Atlanta Road and Daniel Street. Not caused by them, but an existing problem that's been ongoing for well over a decade. They're willing to contribute $200,000 to find that solution as Cobb DOT may deem fit. Turning now to the actual carpool plan that we are proposing that's contained in our stipulation letter. Again, now you see this is Atlanta Road on the bottom of your screen, as well as Cooper Lake Road in the middle. We have exits and access only on Cooper Lake. What we are proposing that during carpool, during that 30-minute time frame, when you have this small universe of students coming in and out for carpool, what we have committed to is that parents exiting the site must go straight on Cooper Lake Road. They cannot turn left and turn into the traffic that is caused at Daniel Street and Atlanta Road, either in the morning or in the afternoon. You can see how short a distance that is. That'll be monitored by on-site by our personnel. That's how that will happen and how it will be enforced. It'll be in our parental contracts. This works. According to our traffic study and according to DOT, this does work from a carpool and traffic impact standpoint. DOT's concern is the future enforceability of that particular commitment, even though currently at our South Campus site, this is from 2013, when that South Campus site was approved. It included a stipulation that did the exact same thing. St. Benedict's Episcopal School would monitor and ensure that its parents and carpool traffic go a certain direction when leaving their campus to ensure that cars aren't going back in and turning back into the problem traffic area. That's currently what they are doing, and they've done that successfully now for nearly a decade without problem. Because again, they have a control over their universe of parents that are involved with this school. Speaking of traffic, that has been the issue that has dominated this discussion because of the existing traffic issues there at Daniel Street and Atlanta Road and Cooper Lake Road and that intersection of those three roads. But I want to speak to you a little bit legally about what traffic means in the context of a land use decision and what traffic means in the context of this decision. Traffic cannot be a pretext for denial of this application. The Georgia Supreme Court in DeKalb County versus Flynn flatly stated, overturning the county denial, that the county has the power to control traffic as it thinks necessary. The county has the duty and the obligation to work with owners by considering on its own motion ways in which county action and objections to a proposed development can be eased by county action. That's the duty of the county, and that's from the Georgia Supreme Court. St. Benedict's has added to that by providing and committing to $200,000, a very substantial sum, to aid the county in ways in which it can ease those objections. Finally, as it relates to St. Benedict's Day School, because it is a religious school, the Religious Land Use and Institutionalized Persons Act, that's a federal act signed into law by Congress and ultimately by President Clinton in 1993. This specifically applies to land use decisions that apply to religious institutions such as religious schools. It's a federal act that controls. And what that act was all about was ensuring that religious institutions and schools are treated at least as equally and at least as fair as non-religious institutions and assemblies. Importantly, it prohibits implementation or action of land use regulations that substantially burden a religious school, for example, without a compelling governmental interest and that the government pursues in the least restrictive way possible. But more importantly, it prohibits absolutely unequal treatment of religious institutions such as religious schools versus non-religious institutions and assemblies. Religious schools must be treated at least as well as non-religious assemblies and institutions, not equally, at least as well. It's a big difference in the language. Why am I pointing this out? In 2004, Z168 was approved. I've handed that out as well as handed out this presentation and submitted it to the clerk for the record. Z168 was approved in 2004. That was a rezoning of the property, and you can see where it's located, directly across Atlanta Road at the exact same intersection with Daniel Street and Atlanta Road. It was approved for office and institutional uses as well as retail and other types of non-religious, institutional, and commercial and retail businesses. Importantly, it was approved for a non-religious institution across the street, and it contained a zoning condition that the applicant will participate on a pro rata basis as to the proposed traffic signal at the intersection of Atlanta Road and Daniel Street when warranted by the Cobb County DOT. That's important because directly across the street, this county approved a non-religious assembly and use at this exact same intersection dealing with the exact same traffic problem and approved it with them having to contribute sometime in the future. St. Benedict's is willing to contribute today. Again, we respectfully believe this is an outstanding application, one of a great community partner, and one that we would respectfully request you approve. Thank you. I believe Brian Sullivan, head of the school, has about 30 seconds or so that he can speak.
Yeah, I just very quickly want to say, as I look you in the face, you can trust us. As you look our parents in the face, it brings emotion to me to see this much support. You can trust them to follow that traffic plan. And we've worked very hard with you all to great expense at the school. As we've come to where we are today, I hope you'll vote for and for trusting us. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, for those in opposition, you'll now have 10 minutes to speak.
Good morning, Madam Chairman, Commissioners. My name is Patrick Dodson. I'm with the law firm of Giacomo, Robertson, Dodrell. I'm subbing in for Brian Dodrell today. I think you've seen him here before a few times on this matter, but I thank you for the time. I am here, your commissioners, to represent the interest of the Kensington Green Homeowners Association and 26 individually named residents of that subdivision that that live in the community. They zealously oppose this rezoning request as well as the special land use permit application. Just a few things I wanted to address, notwithstanding the site plan that's been proposed, the different entrances into the school. The county's own DOT rejected the most recent traffic study, flat out rejected it. The recommendations that were included in the Cobb County DOT's assessment are nowhere to be found on the plan that's been submitted by the school. This has nothing to do with RLUIPA, frankly. This has only to do with traffic and a traffic study and for the community members that live there. To say that there's any discriminatory motivation by my clients is completely false, and it's a non-issue here. But I would like to direct the commissioners to number 9 of the recommendations of the Cobb County DOT, which frankly my clients object to, but the solution for this problem that has gone on for several years, has increased several years because of at least one factor in the school's student population has grown mightily over the years. But number 9 of the DOT revised comments, page 3, it was March 4th, 2022, they recommended the construction of a roundabout and that the developer or the school contribute 100% of the cost of the roadway. Now I understand that the school is now willing to commit $200,000 to system improvements. The last time I checked when I represented local government was a roundabout of this manner and make would cost in the neighborhood of $750,000 to over $1 million. That burden would be borne by the Cobb County School Board, or I mean the Cobb County School or Cobb County local governing body, and they would still have to acquire the right-of-way to make these improvements. But once again, it goes without saying, you've reviewed it, they totally reject, the DOT totally rejects the traffic study. Now, the expansion of this school will not only produce undue burden on the roads and infrastructure, and that is a grounds for denial, but the last time, my understanding, the last time that we were here, this commission instructed this school, Mr. Moore, to reach out to my clients and try to develop a plan or a resolution to the issues that still remain. They have not done that. They haven't presented a single plan to my clients. The first notice that we received of this matter was yesterday afternoon. They didn't seek to contact us, say, well, what do you think? Here's our proposal. This is what we'd like to do. So that wasn't done. This firm sent a detailed letter to the board in February that outlined the concerns. I would want to direct you back to that letter. It really sums up the issues that still exist to this point in time with respect to this rezoning and the special land use permit request. That's a February 1 letter. Again, none of the issues that we raised have been addressed by Mr. Moore or his client. One of the largest issues that we see is that they're claiming that they're only going to increase the student body by 240 students. Well, based upon our calculations, the actual total number of students that would be permitted based upon the zoning and or rezoning of the property would be 872 students. That's a far cry from the 672 students that are proposed, but the zoning would permit 872 students, and they would, in fact, put 872 students into the schools, the different campuses. There was also, there have been a number of different zoning decisions based upon this campus and the expansion of this campus. As I understand it, originally the plan was 200 students. Since that time, it grew to 380 students. They added an additional 200 students, and they've added 52 more students. Now they want to add and grow to 872 students. That was never the plan, the initial plan of what the school was going to do. And frankly, one of the zoning conditions from 2008 was the dedication of system improvements to mitigate traffic concerns. So going back to 2008, there were traffic concerns. There are ongoing traffic concerns. This plan does not address those concerns. The Department of Transportation has noted that the traffic study, the site plan, does not address these concerns, and they don't even want to enter into discussions about the roundabout. But I do want to point out if this commission is persuaded to grant the rezoning request and the special land use permit, the homeowners association has specific imposed as conditions of zoning. One would be that the population of the school would be a maximum of 240 middle school students, but nothing should permit the total enrollment to exceed 672 students for all campuses. That would be the total aggregate number of 672 students, not 872, which would be permitted by the current zoning and then the rezoning of the property. We would also propose a restriction on carpooling. That is number 3 in our February 1st letter. Basically, that they would utilize 2 pickup times at a ratio of 73% of the total enrollment of this location. That seems, based upon what Mr. Moore and his client has indicated, that they do have a traffic plan, they do monitor the traffic, so this would not be something hard for them to implement. We would also propose that as number 4 in one of our conditions would be that there would be traffic guards or law enforcement personnel as a traffic control mechanism in accordance with Cobb's Code 13437G. They would have to be licensed law enforcement individuals. The next condition would be that prior to the approval of any Land disturbance permit, the applicant would complete a flood study on Cooper Lake at its point of intersection with the stormwater system draining the subject property and the furthest downstream boundary of Kennington Green, and the design of the stormwater retention for the subject property that would not increase the flow or elevation of the creek. Additionally, prior to applying for any development or building permit for the property, the applicant will establish a neighborhood advisory group of 3 designees from Kensington Group subdivision, and that permits, plans, and applications would be submitted to them for their review and approval and comment before being submitted to the county. There would be no parking signs erected along the right-of-way of Daniel Street from its intersection of Cooper Lake to the roundabout, and shall enforce same with the attendees. That would also seem to be a very minimal requirement, although it does entail that there would be a roundabout. That leaves about a minute for anyone else to speak. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Hi, Christina Kreitzer, President of the HOA, and representing also the same people Patrick just spoke about, the 27 people in the neighborhood, which is really 27 homes times 2, so 54 people opposed. That frankly can't be here because this has drug on for, as they've said, several years. We continue to be opposed to the rezoning and agree with what Kevin Moore stated, that the lot is O&I, but what we're neglecting to represent is the page of stipulations that's for the existing house. No additional lighting, no additional hard surface, no additional parking, and so on. So it maintains alignment with the Cobb County Master Plan, which is what everybody bought into, thinking it was residential community. And this increases the slippery slope of expansion of the school system, which we want to be clear, we're not opposed to the school itself. As a neighbor, they have been good, but traffic over the years has definitely increased and is intolerable with a neighborhood that has 1 ingress and 1 egress. Also due to the multiple zoning variances and the slippery slope it was created. So we're living with the continued decisioning of variances being granted. So our request is that you continue to deny this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, that concludes our opposition. We will now hear from Commissioner Richardson. It's not appropriate to ask questions during this time from the audience. Commissioner Richardson.
Thank you. And I certainly appreciate all of the work that the school and the community has done, and absolutely staff as well. There's been a lot of, as referenced, a lot of conversation and discussion. There are several questions that have presented themselves that I would like to have addressed, and certainly, Amy, I think you're going to be the star of the show today. And I will, other commissioners, when you want to, I'll go through just a couple, and then I think we're going to keep Amy up here for a little bit. I do have one other question for another staff member, so it was referenced that the traffic plan as proposed by the school works on its face. Is that true? Is that something that has been analyzed or determined?
So they had submitted several traffic studies based on the various versions of the plan that we've gone through. Their traffic study does say it works, but as was stated by the opposition, Cobb County did not accept that traffic study. Mm-hmm. So that's a matter of engineering opinion.
And what were the grounds for why that traffic study was not accepted?
One of the things is that it is very difficult to restrict users on a public roadway from making a turn, especially using private staff, not Cobb County police staff or Cobb County school board staff that have been trained to how to direct traffic. So basically, the plan that's been presented, the one that's from December, depends on that being allowed. And there's already congestion in the area, so it's a difficult situation. But if that particular stipulation doesn't hold, or if that's done incorrectly, then it's going to aggravate the situation further.
Okay. Related question. So it was also presented that the other location currently has that system in place, and it was mentioned that there haven't been issues to date. Have there been issues related to that location?
So that was implemented more for a neighborhood not wishing traffic to go through. I am not aware of complaints from the neighborhood. However, I've done some observations, and I saw people turning left up to go up Weaver Street. It's not as desirable as turning left at this location will be, because if they turn left here, they're right at Atlanta Road. So even in the situation where they're further away from Atlanta Road, I have seen people make that movement. Now, was it just the day I was there? I mean, again, it's kind of a long-term issue. Because this is a traffic congestion issue instead of a neighborhood reaction to traffic traveling through their neighborhood, that's why it's higher on the DOT concern list.
Understood. Okay, something else that was brought up was enforceability. So I know there have been at-length discussions on that. Perhaps you can just shed some light on what that means.
So talking to our public safety representative, basically, they can't guarantee a police officer from the county, and therefore the county can't pursue that private restriction on turning movements. I mean, that's not a public law. It's basically a law. It's a stipulation and an agreement they're getting in with their students through this parental agreement. So what that would leave us with is, if we started seeing violations, then it would leave us in the position of having to hound the school to hound the parents, and that's an awkward situation for us to be in. So,
And enforceability today at the other location, and I'll probably ask this once I call Kevin up as well, but it's my understanding that it's kind of a faith thing. We're not enforcing.
Correct.
We're
Cobb
assuming
County
it's
is not
being
enforcing it. It's a
enforced
stipulation in case the community complained, then we could then go out and have somebody look at it and basically say, look, you agreed to this, but it's not like a law. We can't get a police officer to arrest somebody for or give a ticket for turning left or right in that case, out of that situation.
Okay, so if someone were to complain today at the other location, what can a resident do if they were to complain?
What would likely happen is they would contact DOT or community development, and we would observe the situation and then contact the school. But it would be, because it's a school agreement with the parents, it's not up to the county to enforce.
Okay.
So that's why it puts us in the position of, if it's at the other location, that the county can't enforce it. We have to go to the school and ask the school to enforce it. And of course, they don't have a legal police officer either, so they have their own enforceability.
It cannot be done as a citation through community development?
That is my understanding from speaking to public safety.
Okay. Like through code enforcement, considering if it's a stipulation?
Now, code enforcement can, if they observe, they can issue a citation through code enforcement, but they have to observe the situation.
Okay. Thank you. And then I believe another thing that came up was the cost of a roundabout. And I know we're dealing in it's super hypothetical, but
Yes.
if there is a potential range of estimations for roundabouts, what are we looking at on average?
The range given of $750,000 to $1 million is pretty on. The rule of thumb we're using right now is $1.5 million, but that includes all utilities and right-of-way. And so it obviously very much depends on the area you're in and how much those impacts are specific to a given site. Roundabouts can be up to $2 million and more. It just really is site dependent.
Okay. When discussing the roundabout option, had there also been discussions around donation of right-of-way by the school?
The roundabout discussion hasn't really gone very far.
Okay.
I mean, it is a DOT recommendation if this is to be placed in this location, but since it did not have community or school support, we haven't entered those discussions.
Thank you.
Because the donation of right-of-way, even if we move the roundabout mostly toward the school, I mean, we're still going to impact other right-of-way because of the way roundabouts work at an intersection.
Okay, thank you. Those are, I think, the main questions that came up. Open up first.
Commissioner, I believe other commissioners have questions for DOT.
Can we pull up the slide that I think Mr. Moore presented of the traffic flow? Do you have that, CP?
He's got it up.
Okay. And this plan has not been accepted by DOT?
Correct. We recommend, if the school is in this location, moving the entrance over onto Daniel Street, which of course has some community concern.
Yeah.
And they have presented other plans. We had a big draft of another plan that looked at closing part of Cooper Lake and various other things. The interim plan for that had the school staff or police officer having to direct traffic on Atlanta Road. So that's another reason why we didn't approve that plan. But that's not the one they're presenting here. That was an interim attempt to find a middle ground.
Okay. So where would the roundabout go if that was the solution
Hold on a
or
second.
recommendation?
We actually had a couple sketches that we showed in public. You can't? Oh. All right. So it happens basically at Daniel and Weaver. There's a roundabout there, and they're passing the handout I have.
You can't put it on the, okay.
Apparently our camera's not working today. And that's a very conceptual level sketch that it's just to give a visual of what that idea is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was just curious. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, and how it handles school traffic is basically things from Cooper Lake, that left turn would be shut down entirely, and the through would be shut down. So that people that want to come from Cooper Lake that can currently turn left to go toward Atlanta Road or straight on Cooper Lake Road, they would have to turn right on Daniel, go through the roundabout, and then go in which direction they wanted.
So-
It moves all that conflict further away from Atlanta Road.
Yeah. So knowing the cost of a roundabout, having several in my district, is there, with the 200,000 that they're committing to today, are there any other solutions, or is the roundabout the only way to alleviate the traffic from Kensington?
There is another solution that, I can pass that as well, but that does not include a roundabout, but it's still a major roadway change, so it's still going to be very costly. There's no inexpensive solution. We've been studying this, as mentioned, for over a decade, so trying to make it work.
I know, and I know that the traffic is an issue currently without the school.
Yes. So one of my observation days in the morning, so the AM dismissal, I was stuck on Cooper Lake going toward Atlanta Road for over 5 minutes and it's not because they can't handle the driveways, it's just the amount of traffic. Once they get to Atlanta Road, it queues backwards. And it was queued almost to where, if you zoom out a little bit, where Cooper Lake turns. A little bit more. It's down to the south, yeah. So all through there was queued up, and it took over 5 minutes to get to the intersection to be able to get onto Atlanta Road. So I know that there are at least days, and traffic varies, so there may be days where it does work and there's not unreasonable delays. But at least on days that I've observed, there have been delays that I would consider unreasonable.
Okay, thank you. That's all I had. Okay.
Thank you. Commissioner Gambrill.
So just a follow-up, because I noticed from the plan that was submitted to the site plan we have today, we've gone from multiple buildings down to one building. The first plan had 50,000 square foot buildings. This one has a Phase A of 30,000 square foot. Of the two infrastructure improvements, the DOT improvements that were presented, was that for the bigger scaled plan or this reduced scaled plan?
For either.
For either. Okay. So then, this might be a question for the applicant, but are your comments going to change if this site plan changes as far as DOT? Because again, we've got just one building of 30,000 square foot. I think the original application, to me, gives indication of what future growth wants to look like, which with growth comes traffic. And, again, the question is how will that be handled in the future?
So we want to work with them, and so we're always willing to look at a new plan and a new traffic analysis. But I know that if it stays with this configuration, and that it's probably, our comments are probably not going to change. If they start trying to incorporate some of the things that we've proposed, then that would be a different conversation, but that's a considerable cost.
Commissioner Gamble, does that conclude your questions? Commissioner Sheffield?
I just had questions regarding the alternative improvement, but you've answered those. But for the second recommendation of improvements, if you could just explain that for the audience, because we have the privilege of seeing this, but if you can just describe what that is.
If you can pass it back so I can look at it,
sure.
so I don't misspeak about which roads or which. Oh, that's the roundabout one. I need the other one.
There should be another one.
Yes. It's like you're me. Thank you. All right. So what this particular improvement does is it moves the Daniel Street at Atlanta Road intersection south, is more or less what happens. So the current area is blocked out, added to the parkland most likely, and the intersection actually occurs, it goes through the south part of the park north of, if you can zoom in, I'll try to get the cursor in the correct location. Go to the corner of the Atlanta Road and Cooper Lake Drive, and then kind of go a little bit south from there. So, looking, it's kind of lined up with that second driveway area. So where that parking lot is, okay, over on the, if you're going up Cooper Lake Drive Road, there's that big parking lot area to the southeast, and right there. The new connection for Daniel, well, for Cooper Lake, would cut through between that parking lot and the park property. And then the current Daniel Street connection would be closed. So Daniel Street would terminate at Cooper Lake, and Cooper Lake would continue on to Atlanta. And given that spacing, currently Cooper Lake warrants a signalization, but can't be signalized because of these geometric concerns. And so we would certainly try to design that where it could be signalized, because we know that traffic volumes would just shift to the new location.
Do you have, thank you. Looking at the map here, do you have any other questions, Commissioner? I do have some clarifying questions, and the first one may be geared more for our county attorney. And listening to the applicant's presentation, there were comments made and a case referred to that would seem to bar local jurisdiction from denying a zoning request based on traffic concerns. Can you please speak to that point made?
Unfortunately, I have not had the liberty of reading that case. I did write it down, or did write the citation down. Traffic is, there is case law out there that says that as a consequence of growth, there is traffic in an area. So that is not a sole reason for denying it. But listening as well to DOT's comments, this, I mean, if there's any kind of a safety issue, or, I mean, inconvenience versus safety is pretty much the defining factor. So if you're inconvenienced because there's additional traffic, that is not a reason to deny a rezoning. If there are safety issues because of traffic, I mean, that goes to the whole general welfare that the board has the discretion to decide cases on.
Thank you, appreciate that. And perhaps another clarifying question is, code enforcement able to have jurisdiction on roadways with respect to any conditions that we place on a property?
They control, or they can write stipulations on Chapter 134, which are zoning conditions. So as this is described, this is an agreement between the school and the parents that the parents will not go straight along whatever. They have to go straight on Cooper Lake, if I recall correctly. The code enforcement could cite the school for a violation of a zoning condition.
Okay.
But police cannot cite the driver because it's a public road and they can make a turn on a public road.
Thank you. And this gets back to Commissioner Richardson's point about enforceability. In the traffic plan or in the DOT's recommendations, it was advised for them to have law enforcement be able to guide traffic on the roadway?
No, ma'am. So what it is in presenting the traffic studies to Cobb DOT, those traffic studies incorporate a police officer or other staff directing traffic to make them work.
Okay.
So, but Cobb DOT does not recommend, in fact, does not want to put schools out there.
Thank you for clarifying that to me.
Yes.
So it was not DOT's recommendation to have an officer out there?
Correct. That's actually one of the reasons why we didn't accept the studies.
Okay, I see. Commissioner Burrow.
Yeah, this may be for the applicant. I thought in the presentation they said personnel. They didn't say a police officer.
So that's been said different ways. The applicant has always said personnel. The reports actually show a police officer.
Okay.
As I mentioned, I saw violations, so I'm not sure how, the personnel is working out. A police officer could do it, but PD has told us that there's already a staffing shortage and that they don't think they could get a police officer to do it. And I would not recommend anybody that's not trained in traffic management to try to direct traffic on Atlanta Road, which was their March plan. So.
Commissioner Gambrell.
So are you only concerned with PD directing traffic on Atlanta Road, or could they have a police officer or someone who's trained in traffic control directing traffic on the non-Atlanta?
The county would not have somebody that they could guarantee could be there. So it could still come back to the county as an enforceability issue. But once you're on a local roadway instead of a major arterial, it's, it's easier to see somebody being able to do that from the private sector.
And another clarifying question, is the only traffic modification that DOT is supporting the roundabout suggestion, or are there any other solutions that could work to address the issues?
The only two concepts that DOT has put forward has been the roundabout that happens at Weaver and Daniel, and then the other one that I was walking through the verbal of closing the Daniel Street connection, yes, moving it down and making that a Cooper Lake connection.
Okay.
So both of them are major construction.
Okay, and then regarding funding, and this may be something you know or don't know, but with our SPLOST program, we tend to have a bucket for intersection improvements or safety operational improvements.
This is outside of that.
Limited. This would be beyond that. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. And I know the commissioners had multiple conversations with Drew, our director, that
Okay.
there's not funding at this time for this improvement.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions for DOT? All right, Commissioner Richardson.
Excuse me.
Commissioner. Yes.
Commissioner, just as a point of clarification with the SPOS funding, is it an eligible project and there's just no funding as it stands today?
So I believe that this would have to be a named project is the way the SPOS works, and it's not on the list, is what I believe would have to happen. So it would have to be added to a future SPOS, and then.
But it can be added is what I'm trying to.
But then it's competing with other projects.
I
so-
understand.
Yeah, and thank you for clarifying, Commissioner, because that's what perhaps I was alluding to, is that when we do have those general buckets, we do have the ability to vie for which intersections could be considered, and certainly there are 4 districts, but that could be, it could potentially be negotiated if it's an eligible project under that bucket.
And certainly, regardless of any development conversations, we have identified this as an intersection of interest.
Yes.
And so whatever future lists are available to us, it is on there. But the cost is, for how to approach this is significant. And the solutions are, at this point, proposed, but there's not a lot of overconfidence in those potential solutions because there are drawbacks with both of the options. From a just road, looking at this intersection standpoint. Thank you. Well, Amy, I'm not going to commit that we won't have you come back up here at some point, but you are free to go right now.
Thank you.
And I'd like for Kevin to come up. All right.
Yes.
So several questions were brought up, and then I think I wanted to add on to the clarification question that was brought up by the chair. But one of the first things that the community was concerned about was the total number of students versus the increase and what we were looking at. And so just to provide some additional clarity there, we are looking at 872 students total, or are we looking still at the cap of 672 with the 240 going to the middle school?
Let me let
Okay, absolutely.
Brian Sullivan answer
Thank
that
you.
as it relates to exact enrollment numbers so that I don't give wrong calculations. Thanks, Brian.
Yeah, so the plan right now, the South Campus has zoning for 200 students, and we're increasing that by 40 on the new campus. We're going to move a second and third grade, today is the plan, or third and fourth grade, so that'll be as many as 120. So we could reduce that total by 80.
So you're saying the total 872 minus 80? Okay. Thank you for that clarification. And you might want to stay up for this next one, too. With regards to the expansion phases, I know that was also a discussion that came up with the community conversations. Perhaps you can provide some clarity there about the future phases and this property.
Yeah. So right now, it's the one phase. As you had looked at the map, there are other pieces of property available. It would all be contingent on if we had more property or we got to a place where we filled what we needed to. We're not, the increase would be facilities. It would not be student body. So what we're building now is the classrooms for the students. When and if they ever fill, then we would build a library, we would build a gym, we would provide the extracurricular stuff.
Okay, thank you. On to the personnel question.
Yes.
Personnel, police officer, how do we currently do the other location? Is that just your staff?
Sure, it's personnel, primarily Brian, but it's personnel that observes that. Please note, we do have parents that live on Weaver Street and live in Kensington Green. They're allowed to turn. That's probably what Amy witness. There's parents that can turn because they live right there. The idea is to prevent the flow of traffic coming back through the residential area. So that's why we have that, and that's why it's controlled by school personnel. As far as whether it's school personnel controlling it, as we saw on the carpool plan, it's a very short, one more, distance, a couple more. One more.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a very short distance between where you see us exiting and then that problem intersection. So that could be, that certainly can be school personnel. If it needs to be, for some reason, if DOT believes, or the county or public safety or whatever needs it to be a police officer, it can be a police officer. They do that on a part-time basis. It's not a matter of personnel. They do it on a part-time basis, just like the police officers that sit there every morning and every afternoon on Stilesboro Road and allow for traffic coming from Mount Perrin Christian School to come in and out of that school. Is a Cobb County police officer sitting right there every single morning and every single afternoon.
Thank you.
And this happens all over the county for public schools and for private schools. So that.
Yeah, that was gonna, the
Yes.
hired aspect, that would
Yes,
be
that's
coming
what
out of,
happens.
that's
That's
your
not-
payment.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but yes, my understanding is that's always what happens and why they're available, and certainly we would be more than willing to do that if that's what was deemed to be necessary, and we're happy to do that.
It was also mentioned about a flood study for Cooper Lake and Kensington Green. Is that something, and I know you have included elements on there about drainage and so, but is that an additional study assigned to that, something?
I believe, yes, my understanding, that's part of Cobb County Stormwater Division's comments and recommendations, which we're very familiar with, have met with Mr. Carver, and are perfectly acceptable and agreeable to doing all of those, which includes tying in the drainage to, and it's more than just a small amount of work. There's some work that has to be done, and we're agreeable to that to ensure stormwater management is handled appropriately.
Okay. And I'm not sure exactly, I want to ask opposition to provide clarity on a point and then to have you provide some response for that as well. Can I have my opposition come up? I couldn't catch everything, so I apologize.
It's a lot.
So there was one desired requirement as well, and I just want to understand exactly what that requirement was. It was some percentage.
Yes, that would be specific to, it's number 3 in our opposition letter from February 1st, notwithstanding anything to the contrary regarding the maximum enrollment of the property and/or the school, the aggregate limit on all campuses enrollment at the subject property shall be limited by the maximum capacity of its pickup lane, utilizing 2 pickup times at a ratio of 73% of the total enrollment for this location.
Okay.
And that was actually a previous stipulation
Yeah.
that David had requested.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I didn't remember 73%. So, thank you. All right, and Kevin. Is that something that the school also has the ability to monitor
Yes.
and maintain?
Yes, and we were agreeable with that at the time as well. And
Let's see. I think those were my questions for you directly.
Commissioner, if I could clarify one point that was stated, because I think it's, it needs to be clarified just from a optic standpoint.
Go ahead.
The statement that was made, because, and you're aware, and I don't think the other commissioners and Madam Chair are aware of the meeting, community meeting that took place on Tuesday, April 12th, a week ago.
Kevin, I know you're sharing this, but I feel like this would be adding time to that 10-minute time to propose unless there's a direct question asked.
That's fine.
So I would just defer to the county attorney to help us because then I feel like I would have to
If he
allow.
is presenting his own comments, that would allow additional time, unless the board granted the applicant additional time.
Okay.
If there was clarification on one of the points that we've inquired upon specifically, perhaps you can shed light on that, but if not,
Okay. Just wanted it to be known that, in fact, there was a community meeting with Kensington Green last Tuesday night, April 12th, because it was stated that that had not occurred. And I want to make sure that this board knows that it did occur. That's all.
Thank you. Just out of fairness, if somebody from Kensington Green or opposition would like to address that point, I'd like to give them the opportunity to do so.
Thank you.
absolutely, thank you.
Thank you.
And
Okay,
actually,
we have someone coming to respond.
Thank you.
I do have oh yeah, they're great.
I used to work with Mr. Moore 20-some-odd years ago in Tennessee. And so if I am misinformed that there was an actual meeting and communication with Kensington Green, then I was not informed of that. Again, we were just presented with this yesterday afternoon, and so we were scrambling, to say the least. But so if that's what occurred, and there was a meeting, then I would stand by Mr. Moore's testimony here today. I have no reason to dispute what he says.
Thank you. I did want to get clarification on that legal aspect as well. I'm trying to recall how you phrased it.
The legal aspect.
The traffic. Yes, traffic.
There's an assertion that, and correct me if I'm wrong, Commissioner, where you're going. There was an assertion that you made that seemed to prohibit a local body from denying zoning based on traffic. I have here 243 GA 679.
Correct.
Can you speak to that, please?
Sure. Can I put that back there? There, go back one. Yeah, that's it. Yes, I simply was making the board aware, and certainly it's our position and opinion, that if traffic is the issue upon which a denial is based, then the Georgia Supreme Court has held that's an improper basis for a denial of a rezoning. So that's the point I'm making in citing to the case, and as Ms. Blair says, she's not familiar with it or hasn't read it, which is perfectly fine, but that's one that I'm very familiar with, and that it's our position that the Georgia Supreme Court has held that. And that's where I'm pointing to that as guidance from our standpoint.
Yeah, thank you, thank you. And yes, so the clarification question is to this. I also have one for the federal case as well, but for traffic in this context, because it looks like you've done a decent amount of research here, how is traffic being defined?
In this case, there was concern over both traffic congestion and traffic safety. And it was the Supreme Court's decision that because that was the factor, that it was an improper denial of the rezoning application.
Was it more so volume of cars, or was it the arrangement of the land itself?
It was speaking to increased traffic congestion and fears of traffic safety and traffic congestion.
Okay.
It didn't speak specifically didn't drill down that far, but it did speak to those two things specifically.
Thank you. If you go to the federal statutes.
Yeah, can you go
Or
one more?
rulings.
Two more? Yeah, that one. Okay.
And the case here, we're looking, or for Cobb County situation, we're looking at the school nearby.
Right, so this is a federal act, as I stated, that was signed by President Clinton in 1993. It was passed in a bipartisan manner by Congress in that year, aimed specifically at protecting religious institutions and assemblies and schools as it relates to land use decisions. This is a federal statute and a federal act. The religious institutions and schools can file complaints under this act, and the Department of Justice can also seek and file complaints against local jurisdictions and has based on this act. Our point here is that as a religious school, this act does act to protect us, but primarily it's not about discrimination. It's about being treated as equally, at least as well, is what the phrase is, being treated at least as well as non-religious assemblies and institutions. And what I was pointing to was across Atlanta Road. We can go back to that one. This next one. Yep. Across Atlanta Road in the location that's identified here in 2004, that was a UVC and LRO zoning. It was also part of a much larger project that was taking place. But in 2004, 168 was approved, Z168, for a development across the street, which is office and retail, ultimately residential, but office, retail, and institutions that are non-religious at this same intersection at Daniel Street and Atlanta Road. And it was approved there. And one of the issues was the traffic at Daniel Street and Atlanta Road, because they're exiting out of Atlanta Road directly across from Daniel Street. You can see that where that arrow is pointing to. And at that point in time, the county and the applicant agreed that this applicant would provide a prorated share of the cost of a traffic light if warranted at that intersection as a means of dealing with or addressing the very issue we're talking about today, the traffic at that intersection. My point and our opinion is that the federal act that we've identified states that the county is under an obligation to treat St. Benedict's Episcopal School at least as fairly as it treated this applicant that when it was approved in 2004. And we are bound to bring that issue to your attention, and that's why we're doing so.
That concludes my questions for you,
Thank you.
Commissioners.
I believe Commissioner Gambrill, then Commissioner Burrow.
So this is not a question for you, Kevin, just
Great.
to,
Thank you.
just to clarify. So while I understand the applicant's desire to compare this to across the street to make it equal as far as zoning, the traffic flow is completely different from one use to the other. And, you know, I'm not sure if when DOT does studies, they do warrants to see if the traffic flow justifies the light. And I'm sure in the, 18 years, it hasn't justified the light because it doesn't have the traffic flow. The school, while it can go there in the ONI use, it has a different impact overall to the community as to traffic because it's all at once. It's not dispersed throughout the day, such as the use across the street. So that is, you know, why I understand Mr. Moore's argument. It's different because of the impact, and again, you're condensing the traffic flow at one period or actually 2 periods of time, beginning and end of school, whereas the use across the street is throughout the day.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Burrow.
Mr. Moore, if this were approved today, what would be you said you would commit the $200,000 for the road improvements today, or
Correct.
upon approval. What would be the time frame for construction and phases and completion?
Sure, the
moving
school,
forward?
yes, the school would not begin construction even of the middle school for 3 years. And that's been part of the discussion that we have had multiple times in many meetings, and these are good meetings. It's not been adversarial with Cobb DOT at all. We've just been searching for it to inform them. There's a 3-year runway before we even begin construction, in which if there's a solution that they prefer, we can work towards that. But we wanted to be sure that our contribution was being made now, not at some future point in time, but now, so that that could be counted on as part of that.
Okay. I have one other question for Amy.
So do I.
Sorry, Amy.
Thank you.
I don't know if anybody has anything else for him. Okay. This intersection or area, you say has been a lot of traffic for over a decade?
So Speaking of the Atlanta Road at Daniel Street intersection, that one has met signal warrants for volume. It can't be signalized, and the reason that that stipulation for across the street has never been instituted is because it can't be signalized for geometric concerns. The designs that we've put together as concepts basically address some of those geometric concerns, either by moving the intersection down or otherwise controlling the flow at the intersection so that there's not conflicting flow that close to an intersection. The difficulty is the distance of Daniel Street between Atlanta Road and Cooper Lake. It's very, very short. It's less than 150 feet, I believe.
Right. For signalization.
For signalization.
But
Well, and it causes traffic congestion because, I mean, the two intersections interact. There's actually quite a few left-turning traffic already coming southbound on Cooper Lake, more than you would think, because there's a daycare up there and a residential community up at the north part of Cooper Lake. So there's a lot of interaction going on at the Daniel Street at Cooper Lake intersection. And then that interaction also overlaps with those people trying to turn in and out of Atlanta Road.
So the second drawing that we saw, in addition to the roundabout for an alternative solution,
The one that
would
moves
be
it
closing Daniel at
between,
that
yes.
location?
Mhm. It would close Daniel between Cooper Lake and Atlanta Road, and then move it down to just above that large parking lot. And that would become an extension. We don't have a cost
ballpark?
associated with that because it's not been identified as a project, it's just a concept. But that's something that certainly can be worked up for the commission if the board wants
Well,
that.
I was just thinking if they're willing to commit 200,000, how much more would be needed to do that improvement there?
And anything I gave you today would be a guess, but I don't think that it's 200,000 would be a majority. I think it would still be
Just a portion?
just a portion.
Okay. Just thinking.
Just a couple of follow-up questions, Amy. The traffic study, or the latest traffic study, is based on how many students?
240.
All right, 240. And there's been quite a bit of talk about traffic congestion. Did you find anything in the report that would speak to any safety concerns?
Only in that, as you get these areas that have high levels of congestion and large delays, what you end up with is drivers that get impatient. They don't want to wait for a suitable gap. What we've noticed is for, say, left-turning traffic, the gap time shortens the longer people have had to wait for that left turn. So people will start taking riskier movements to try to get out of the congestion. As far as other safety, we have the identity of having school staff direct, because currently school staff is directing from a driveway onto a public roadway. This would actually have them in a public intersection directing traffic, because they would have to direct traffic from the southbound left turn on the public roadway, not from a driveway location. All the driveway location, everybody's gonna be turning right. So, that is one of the reasons why we have a concern for the personnel issue. But as far as roadway safety, it's just a matter, as congestion gets higher, we have increased accidents and we have increased risky behavior.
Also, of the two plans that you presented and plans that you've discussed, which would you say would be the safest and the more viable long-term?
I know the roundabout was identified first because it basically moves the intersection to the west. So we'd have to run a traffic analysis on the second option, the one that actually moves the connection, to make sure that all the queuing works. But it is something that could be explored as a viable option.
Okay, that's all I have for Amy.
I'm guessing this is going to be more of a first question to the county attorney. So we have reference on Z168 of 2004, the stipulation that that property owner would contribute to a light at that intersection, the Daniel one. If that intersection moves, is that stipulation still applicable?
So you're talking about the stipulation for the contribution across Atlanta? I mean, I can't say. I mean, we'd have to assess the traffic flows as they stand. I mean, obviously, the further you get away from the subject property, the less effect that the traffic would have on that development. But I can't make any yes or no statement right now without looking at what those traffic flows actually are.
Yeah, from a DOT perspective, just to give you, it would depend on whether or not that development still had access to the signal, because moving it might move it past any of their driveways.
Okay, and of course,
And then the bigger concern, if we do the roundabout or the road realignment, is I don't recall ever when the county has approved a rezoning and a SLUP application, or LUP application. Nope, it is a SLUP. A SLUP application where the county then obligates funding to make a road improvement. That is always borne by the developer when we have infrastructure improvements. And I mean, I had a case back when I first came in that essentially the county wanted the applicant to fund road infrastructure improvements that were not directly related to the entrance to the development, and that was kind of the big hang-up, and they ended up withdrawing. So I'm having a real hard time with this application stating they will only contribute maybe 10% to a project that's going to cost the taxpayers, funding. Looking to use it as a SPLOST project. Again, this isn't a SPLOST project currently. The next SPLOST that would be approved would be 2028, when this could be a, dedicated project. But again, they're going to be up and running within 3 years, and that's 6 years away. So it's not going to address the concerns that the residents have there today, nor the safety impacts that are due because of the volume of traffic at one time.
I agree that there would be a significant length in applying any SPLOST, current or future, but again, knowing that we have a bucket of funds for intersection improvements that would deem this to be an eligible project, as any other intersection would be eligible. I don't necessarily think it's barred from consideration, but again, that would have to be negotiated by the board when those projects come forward, and typically DOT helps to drive the consideration of projects that fall under those buckets.
I think it's just the amount of cost compared to the size of the bucket is a concern for DOT.
Thank you for sharing that. Thank you.
We're going to wrap it up.
Afraid to look.
Go ahead, Commissioner Burrow.
I just want to clarify the reason for my comments on SPLOST or other funding to go with the developer's contribution was because in your statements and other statements, this has been an area of concern with traffic currently existing for 10 years. So whether the school goes there or not, it's an issue that needs to be looked at.
Correct. I mean, it has been on
For
DOT's
safety and intersection improvement. That's the only reason I brought up, could we use other funding, SPLOST or otherwise, for, because it is something that you said has been studied for 10 years.
I'll speak to that.
That's
I'll speak.
all I was referring to.
Yeah, and that's where I was saying, it's certainly on the list, barring any development decisions or what have you. This has been identified now to be focused on, that whatever bucket opens up for us and however we can assign funds to tackle this particular intersection is on that list of kind of the give me something.
Correct. Yeah, the concepts that we shared, that DOT shared, are basically there for whether or not this development is independent of the zoning.
And yes, this might be something that's been studied and it needs improvements for 10 years. This isn't the only location in the county that does that. I mean, we've got areas that need infrastructure improvement that do not have development coming about. So again, to sit here and potentially tie future funding to a development, I am struggling with in this application.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Sheffield?
Well, I have a question for Kevin, but as you make your way, I think to Commissioner Richardson's point, it's not just that it's the school, but it is an issue at this area, and I pass through there very frequently. And, you know, with respect to the taxpayers paying it, they are also the taxpayers. So they're making an investment also in the area, but it's one that definitely needs to be addressed. But for Kevin, my question to you is regarding the traffic study, the traffic circle. Is there consideration for the school to submit the funding and the county hold it in escrow for the repairs? I know there's a commitment to $200,000, but my thought is if the school would submit the funds into escrow for the entire project for the county to complete.
Yes.
And obviously you probably can't answer that right now, but my thought is even if if the funds are collected in escrow, maybe not right away, but if we worked out a plan like in 60 days or 90 days to submit the full amount for the traffic circle for the county to.
When you say the traffic, you mean the roundabout?
The roundabout, I'm sorry,
Okay.
excuse me.
So, yeah, no, we're agreeable and have been. The reason why we have the sum of $200,000 is because we haven't had a project that's been identified that says this is going to be acceptable. We had proposed a project that we would pay for solely, 100%, but DOT didn't support that, and that was the separate project that Amy mentioned that would have involved a road change and intersection, which was fine. The roundabout has been soundly, unanimously rejected by the community. And so according to Drew, DOT Director Drew Rassler, who attended the meeting last week on Tuesday night, that's not an option that they think is really doable because it has such lack of any community support whatsoever. Everybody agrees on that. But we are happy to put that funding in escrow, and if we need to work through that, we can do that. That's what we've been trying to do and certainly will do. The answer to your question is yes, but I wanted to clarify about the roundabout because which it goes to, because from that standpoint.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. Again, it's not appropriate to ask questions from the audience. Commissioner, if you would like to call her up to clarification, that'd be.
But I want to have to finish.
Okay, so are you still asking your question of Kevin? Okay.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Okay. You're free to go. Opposition.
Okay, thank you.
Clarification point on the roundabout, we are opposed to that, but the reason for that is also because that land is private property. Our neighborhood was zoned in a variance, and the roads within Kensington Green are private. All of our infrastructure for the entire community is in the center of that roundabout that they're wanting to change, and that's private property. So it's not just a county decision.
Right,
And
and
the
I was
county's
actually going to
aware-
ask the question for you all, but it was going to be, can you please share the opinion of the community on the roundabout?
Not in favor. We have one ingress and one egress, and that is the only one.
Right.
And the county would lack the power to condemn such property for the road improvement. Also, the single entrance is what is, the board or the homeowner association would like to see. But again, it's not the most cost-effective thing for the applicant. And this is really not about prohibiting them from doing what they're doing. They have a school, it's zoned, they have had rezonings in the past. They're seeking to increase their number through rezoning. And there are safety issues, and there is a traffic issue as well. But to just focus and say you can't deny this because of parking doesn't highlight what the case that Mr. Moore stood for.
And what was the opinion of the community regarding the other option of an alternative road routing, moving that intersection altogether?
Out of the two alternatives the DOT shared, that was the most favorable, the alternative 2, shared by Drew.
Okay. Let's see. And I know you ran down some of the, I didn't have any clarification requirements on your concerns. I did ask about the requested step. Let's see.
Yeah, the other clarification requirement that you touched on was the total student population, and we heard a new number today of 792. And I don't believe that that's the number that the DOT traffic included, because we were working with lower numbers, or they were rather.
Okay.
I believe that Mr. Moore said they used a number of 240, if that's not accurate, but that's far below even the number that we would ask the stipulation, but even below the number of what 992 or 792, I guess, is now the number.
Okay, and what I'm understanding is that the 872 / the 792, they would not be all present at this property, but there would be.
They all use the same intersections and road frontage.
Okay. Okay, so I will probably call Amy back up again to get some clarification on that. Told you you're the star. Thank you.
It's because you put all the other cases on consent. I have to come up here
I
and
know,
talk.
I know. Okay.
Can I go ahead and speak?
Yes,
I know
go
what you're
ahead.
asking.
Go ahead to
So the
that
traffic
point.
study did do 240 students at the new location. The traffic study removed 180 students from the existing location. So it actually, the traffic study subtracted trips from the roadway based on moving the campus. I know that the Kensington Green, I believe it was the one that had a private engineer review that traffic study and submit a memorandum of comments. And one of their comments is that they understood that both campuses would be operating with students. So I got that this week, and so I did not address that in the traffic study review, but that is something that should be clarified.
Okay.
Does that
Thanks.
explain things, or did I muddy things further?
Thanks. Does anyone have any follow-up questions for Amy while we're up here?
Yeah, so the traffic study moves the 180 students and then added an additional 60 students, is what the traffic study did.
For the 240.
For the 240. Yeah, so that involved shifting traffic as well as adding 60 students of new traffic.
Commissioner Richardson, the length of time we spent on this case is indicating that there is not a meeting of the minds, certainly not between the opposition and the applicant, but not even with our own staff. And that's what challenges me. It's one thing when you have two people on opposing sides. It's another thing when we can't get clarification from staff on this moving forward. And I know this case has been continued and potentially held today, but it's very difficult to come to a conclusion of support when there are all of these outstanding questions about how traffic will be addressed.
Kevin?
I'll also provide that I think we're going through all of these questions because there is a desire to support the institution, and we do see the strength of this educational institution in our county. And so I think we are trying to see how this can work, but also trying to ensure that we are not causing a traffic impediment for the surrounding community. And for all that we do in zoning, there's a reason why traffic analysis and DOT is incorporated in zoning, because we need to be mindful of that impact. So please understand that we are trying to do our due diligence for the surrounding community, which is deserving of that due diligence, to make sure we're not going to create a greater challenge for them, again, while recognizing the significant value that the school has in our community. Commissioner.
I'm inclined to hold this for clarification purposes. I understand that there are some issues tied to that.
Not for us, it would not be. We will continue to try to make whatever needs to happen, and work. We can make that commitment from that standpoint.
I want to be able to present to my fellow board members and our community accurate information that is relatively conclusive.
Mm-hmm.
That would be my goal, to have this be held and to accomplish those things within the next until the next zoning hearing. And so I appreciate your answer on that. I'd like for opposition to also come up and share with me your thoughts.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank
you. We're committed.
Can I do? And please correct me if I'm doing something out of procedure. Okay, thank you. Do you understand where I'm having?
I empathize with the decision that you guys have to make. It's been, I'm going to use the word punted, not in a negative sense, for the right reasons. It's been punted for 6 months now. But what we're struggling with is how to fit something so large in a space that's so small in a location it wasn't intended for.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know that another month is going to get us an agreement to that point.
I would concur that I don't know if it'll get us to an agreement, but I would like to function off of accurate information. That is my concern.
It's fair.
Please.
And Mr. Moore, can you come back up? Stay here. Because also kind of what I've gathered from the hearing today is there was a community meeting Tuesday night. And we all know that there's a Wednesday cutoff date, so that way our staff has the ability to review the information to prepare not only themselves but us for today. So it sounds like there was a meeting last Tuesday. Probably information came out at the, I'm going to say last minute, and I'm not taking a jab at anybody, but then it gives the other side, no matter which side gives the information at the last minute, they don't give them the adequate time to formulate their responses to get it back to staff so that we clearly have an understanding. So can you give a date that both sides have to essentially have information to each other and then kind of like, this is your final answer to the county, so that way we're reviewing all of the information at that time? And the only reason why, and I know this is kind of outside of the scope of what the board usually does, but as they say, this case keeps getting continued and continued, and it's getting continued because new information keeps getting added at the last minute.
And one more point of clarification on the community meeting. It only included Kensington Green. It wasn't the wider area. And for example, alternative 2, which is the one that Kensington Green said, well, if we have to say yes to something, this is probably the most palatable, but it's going to have downstream impacts, and those neighborhoods weren't invited to that meeting. So I can't say yes on their behalf. I mean, that's not fair. That's exactly like trying to get somebody to speak for us.
Okay.
So that was part of the conundrum.
And with regards to the feedback that I did receive from the community, it was Kensington Green that primarily had the concerns, given all the constraints that the other communities have sent in a lot of support. So I completely understand that. I just know there was a lot of work that went into arranging all the parties for that meeting, and that was the most available date for everyone. I hear your concern about getting information in ahead of time. Not necessarily sure how to reconcile that on the dais. Perhaps we can make sure that we focus on getting all the information in and available to the commissioners as well. Perhaps that meeting can be more robust in terms of how it's accessed, just from a public information standpoint. But yeah, that would my desire is that all reviews, all determinations, whether it's the number of students or where they're assigned or how we're moving things, that those decisions are complete enough for staff to make a to issue a conclusive statement, and for the opposition to provide their memorandum in a timely manner. Is there anything else, please?
Just said I would recommend DOT be at that meeting and have the two proposals and cost estimates, if that's possible, within the time frame.
Yeah,
that to be discussed.
Everything but the cost estimates were actually a part of the last meeting, considering there is no formal study, and the study would be the thing that yields a cost estimate on that. But certainly the drawings were sketched and presented by our DOT director as well. So we can include them as a part of whatever comes as a result of the completed traffic study, with the notes taken into consideration. Thank you. Anything else?
Commissioner Gamble?
And then are we going to, if we're going to present the option where we're going to change the roads, are you going to then give notification to other residents in the area so that they can come to that meeting as well and be aware of the proposed changes?
That was my recommendation, is that this is a more easily accessible meeting using other additional channels outside of a home, and incorporating so that more people can access it and see it within the other. I think we said broader reach was the term I used, broader reach of the community.
Okay. I just needed that defined.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else? Sincerest apologies on the decision not necessarily being made today, but hopefully this is a decision that moves us in a direction where we can know why we're making the decision. Thank you.
Okay, so Commissioner, you
Motion
present your
to-
suggestion, yes.
Okay. Motion to hold this case for until the next zoning hearing, which is May 17th. Thank you.
I'll second that. Is there any discussion? We'll call the question. The vote is passed 5-0. Commissioners, why don't we go ahead and take a break?
Excuse me, that was the, we need a motion on the SLUP.
Thank you. Appreciate you addressing that.
Thank you.
Was your motion just for the zoning case? Or
It was for both. I think we heard them together, or assumed the motion was for them together, but I can make them separately.
Yes, you do.
Yes,
Okay,
okay.
thank you.
So motion to hold SLUP-11 until the May 17th hearing with the same requirements as requested for Z78.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Commissioner Gamble?
Oh, just to clarify, this is SLUP-11 of 2021.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All right, we'll call the question. All right, the motion carries 5-0. Commissioners, we'll take a break until 11:20 and come back for our next case. Thank you and welcome back to our April 19th zoning hearing. I believe we need to address the prior zoning matter before we go to our next case.
Correct. Would like to amend my motion that instead of the May 17th zoning hearing, it would be the June, what's that one?
June 21st.
June 21st zoning hearing in order to provide adequate time for the study.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? All right, call the question. The motion carries 5-0. Thank you. All right, John?
Thank you. Okay, moving into the other business agenda. First item we're going to hear today is other business item number 10 of 2022, which is to consider a settlement of litigation for Blake Properties Incorporated regarding rezoning application Z9 of 2019, which is located in land lots 413 and 476 of the 19th District. The property is located on the southeasterly side of Powder Springs Road and on the northeasterly side of Brandley Drive. By way of background, Commissioners, Madam Chair, the applicant's opposition for rezoning from GCNS and NRC to RM8 for a 132-unit residential townhome community was denied by the Board of Commissioners on June 18th, 2019. The applicant filed a lawsuit in Superior Court challenging the Board of Commissioners' decision. Prior to this case going to trial, meetings and discussions occurred, and a proposed agreement was formulated, which is attached to your other business item in the letter from Kevin Moore dated March 4th, 2022. The applicant is suggesting rezoning the property to RA5 with a maximum of 82 townhomes. The Board of Commissioners' 2019 decision is attached to your packet. The applicant is present. Is there anyone here opposed to other business item number 10? Please raise your hands. 4. Let the record show there's 4 people here opposed. All those wishing to address the board, please come forward to be sworn in.
Thank you. Kevin, you can proceed.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. Today I'm presenting to you a consideration for your final hopeful approval of a settlement of litigation. Mr. Peterson did an excellent job of presenting you the context and rather summary introduction of what's being proposed and why. As he stated, this property is just over 16 acres, 16.3 acres. It's highlighted on the screen for you. It's there on Powder Springs Road, just south west of the intersection of Powder Springs Road and what I still call Windy Mac. So the intersection of Macklin Road and Windy Mac intersection there. So this property is just essentially as you're heading down Powder Springs Road or heading west or southwest. Once you pass the Chick-fil-A at the corner, this property is then the next tract that is an undeveloped tract. It's zoned as shown on the map. It's zoned to NRC, GC, and NS. It is within a community activity center, the GC and NS pieces. That's neighborhood shopping and general commercial. So those tracts are available for development and do not have to come back to you for rezoning if they are developed as zoned, that is, as zone GC, NS, and NRC for commercial purposes. The initial proposal that was denied by this board in 2019 was a proposed rezoning for a 132 unit townhome community for this property. Ultimately, that rezoning application was denied. There was subsequently a lawsuit that was filed in Cobb County Superior Court. Under the Cobb County Superior Court rules and requirements, it was a lawsuit that had extensive settlement conferences and meetings to review and to consider a multitude of different proposals and factors that went into what we are proposing today and what we have submitted as a settlement of that litigation, which is this, a site plan That is a total of 82 homes. You see the site plan now on your screen. It's a total of 82 homes for a townhome community that is therefore at 5 units per acre. So the rezoning is to the RA5 category instead of the RM8 category. So it would be an RA5 rezoning that is consistent with the RA4 that's to the rear of this property, consistent with the public shopping center and commercial areas that are directly across this property, consistent with the Chick-fil-A and auto-related uses that are adjacent to this property, and serves as to us a perfect transition from that heavy, intense commercial that we're adjacent to as you then proceed down Powder Springs to less intense residential uses, and stepping down exactly that way as you proceed down Powder Springs Road. We also have proposed, as part of that overall settlement, a March 4th, 2022 stipulation and condition letter, which contains a multitude of stipulations controlling the architecture, controlling the use of common area, controlling and ensuring that there is a homeowners association and all of the aspects of that you would typically and want to see that have been negotiated and are part of this settlement proposal. A couple of important points on our southern or southwestern side. You do see that the property would look or appear to be adjacent to Brandon Lee Drive, which is a driveway into a neighborhood Macklin Station subdivision. Our property, however, there is what's called a spike strip, so our property actually doesn't front all the way onto Brandon Lee Drive, and there is no access to Brandon Lee Drive from this proposal. So likewise, that's important. Just as a note of information, in case it's asked, why aren't you accessing there? That's a subdivision street. We're not accessing that. Our access is on Powder Springs Road, aligning with the commercial accesses that are across the street from us across Powder Springs Road as well. Again, I think it's extremely important to understand and consider what was proposed in 2019 and denied by this board, and that you have essentially dropped the number of homes that are being proposed from 132 to 182. So that's a drop of 50 units. So a substantial reduction in the number that was denied in 2019 and what's being proposed here today, as well as with the additional stipulations and conditions that we have put in place. Again, this is the end result of a process of extensive debate, negotiations, and settlement conferences as required by Cobb County Superior Court, and we present this proposed settlement of that litigation. It would result in the dismissal of the lawsuit if approved for your consideration here today. I can answer any questions that you may have, and again, appreciate your time and consideration here this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. We'll now hear from opposition.
Thanks for the help.
First of all, I beg your diligence with me my first time here.
Sure. Can you
Madam
state your name
Chairman,
for the record for us, please?
My name is Terry Schroeder.
Thank you,
Madam
Terry.
Chairman and Commissioners, I am here to represent the Grove Park Association, UOA, and our concern is all the way back to 2017 and the traffic and the size of this community, which is across from ours. We are on the opposite side behind that shopping center, and we have seen a large number of accidents and traffic problems from all the same side as this proposal, from the Chick-fil-A all the way down because of left-hand turns. So we're concerned. We know that the first proposal had a Wendy Hill access at some point, and we're asking and urging the DOT to help us to understand where the biggest access could be for these new townhomes that are going to come in, which are single-family townhomes. So we are asking for some kind of
way that the traffic can be regulated for us as a 55 and older, mostly older community, to get out safely to Powder Springs and to make sure that we can negotiate all that traffic.
Your comments? Does that conclude your comments?
Yes.
Thank you, appreciate it. Is there anyone here to speak in opposition to this matter? Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioner.
Good morning.
Mr. Tracy Marion, I live in Macklin Station. To come back or piggyback on the young lady, not only the traffic would be a headache, if you're bringing in, you wanted 182, now you're bringing in, you wanted 132, now you're bringing in 82 homes, it's still going to be the same traffic. More people. What we're looking at is more crime, more people infiltrate, even though he says the interest is coming off Powder Spring, but who's to say, time being, oh, let's make a cut through. Let's make a cut through. Let's cut through Brandon Lee, then we cut left. We already got a problem with they're cutting down the trees and all the deers from Grover Hill across the street in our area now. So tearing that down and building, it's going to be a big of a headache for the people in Brandon Lee, like I said, community 55 plus, to deal with. And it's already a scary sight because a lot of traffic. Even from my bedroom window, I can hear police sirens, traffic up and down that Powder Spring Road. So building this single home condominiums is not a great idea for the community in Macklin Station coming through Brandon Lee. So that's my comments on that, Commissioners.
Thank you, appreciate your
Have a blessed day.
Yes, I believe we have somebody else to speak in opposition.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
My name is Eileen Akintobi, and I'm the HOA President for the Macklin Station subdivision. We consist of mostly senior citizens there. What is going to happen with these homes put in the back of us, especially on my property, is that we have no privacy, we have noise, and we have flooding. We are wondering what happens when it rains. What happens to that water that is going to be coming down on us? The second thing is that, as I said, the flooding is going to go towards the lower area of Samantha Way. The other problem is that our property values are going to go down because they're going to put up this affordable housing. And I understand that everybody needs a place to live, yes, but we are enjoying a quality of life because we worked hard and we are retirees, we are seniors, you can see my hair, and we need that, We have a problem in terms of getting out of Brandon Lee. When we come out, we have to spend at least 10 to 15 minutes before we can make a left or right onto Powder Springs. Are they going to put a traffic light there? Where is their entrance? Where is it going to be? What is going to happen when there's fightings when you talk about low income and affordable income, I'm not being, prejudiced against, because we all have been there sometimes, and we do need a place to live. But we have to be careful, because I can't run. I can't hide. I don't carry arms or anything like that. So I'm very leery about these people that are going to be placed in these homes, and what are we going to be exposed to? Traffic, I can't get out. Sometimes I wait and I sit for hours before I can make a left or right. And we have, like, the animals are going, they're going. It's just unheard of to put all these units there without, I didn't even know that this is, going to be units where they're going to come in, where they're going to come in. Yes, we have our shopping center across the street, but that's it. So if they can explain to us, where are you going to come in off of Powder Springs? What is your entrance? How are we going to egress? Are you going to get us traffic lights, which is very important, especially for senior citizens? We have to actually creep out. And when they come over these cars, it's nerve-wracking. So I'm just asking the builders that this is not a good idea at all. It is not. It is not a good idea for us, and it is not a good idea for the citizens of Macklin Station. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone desiring to speak in opposition who hasn't spoken yet? All right, seeing none, the hearing is closed. Commissioner Sheffield, I turn it over to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Amy, would you mind?
Amy Diaz, DOT.
There are quite a few concerns shared, but it seems like the majority of the concerns were traffic. I spoke with a gentleman on yesterday, Mr. Renfro, and he was one of the original opponents in the 2019 zoning case. And his concern, obviously, again, is traffic, and he had a recommendation of possibly routing traffic to the north of the development through Macklin Crossing Circle. If you would just speak to that, and I'll just have follow-up questions so I'm not bombarding you with a bunch of questions at once.
Okay. Well, the development doesn't have frontage on the Macklin Crossing Road, so that's one thing that makes that difficult connection. So he's got his cursor pointed to where Macklin Crossing is, and you can see that there's a private property gap between the subject property and that roadway. It kind of looks like there might be a right-of-way or a roadway to the east, to the backside, but that is a Georgia Power easement. That's not a road. So if you'll go up so you can see Windy Hill a little better. Now, at the intersection of Macklin Crossing across the street, so there's a jog in Macklin Crossing. Across the street, it is signalized. So you come in and it comes into the driveway that serves that post office. It's a private drive. It's not a public roadway on the south side. On the north side, it's Macklin Crossing. The driveway that becomes Macklin Crossing that serves the Chick-fil-A and such is unsignalized. And so it's right between the Macklin Road signal and this Macklin Crossing signal. There's no way that we could get enough spacing to signalize a third location, even if they could punch through to Macklin Crossing.
Okay. And what is the required distance for an additional light?
Our recommended minimum distance is 1,000 feet.
1,000 feet, and
Yeah.
this is how many feet? Would you have to estimate?
Yeah, I'd have to.
It's less than 1,000.
It's less than
I think is the
1,000,
point.
yeah.
Okay.
Even the spacing between Macklin Crossing and Powder Springs on Windy Hill is pretty close. But I don't have that number off the top of my head. But certainly not more than 2,000 where you'd have to split it to try to put a signal in between the two.
Okay. And would you mind using your cursor to show the entrance to the community and also confirm if that will be a right-in only? In other words, you cannot make a left turn out of the development?
So do you have the site plan? Yeah, so she wants to show where the entrance is. So you can see, is that what you would like?
Yeah, because
Okay.
there was a concern shared that they were unclear as to where the entrance was, so I just wanted you to
So the DOT conditions don't restrict the turns there.
Okay.
So if that's something that this board wants to institute as a stipulation, it will be very difficult to restrict them because there's no raised median there. And so even if you put the little island, the little pork chops as we call them, people could still go around them unless you have a raised median constructed as part of the project.
Okay.
And that, of course, impacts the left turns for across the street as well. So it's not just this development at that point.
Okay. Also, there was concern about cutting through on Brandon Lee Drive, but based on the site plan, you cannot access the development from Brandon Lee. Would you mind confirming that?
Correct. So what the applicant said is there is a strip of land that doesn't belong to them along the Brandon Lee frontage, so they don't actually have access to Brandon Lee. So they would not be able to
cut through that.
cut through there.
Okay. I think my next question is for stormwater. Do you guys have anything for Amy? Nothing? Okay.
Thank you.
Carl Carver, Cobb County Stormwater.
Hi, Carl. How are you?
Good.
Good. There's concern regarding flooding issues in the Macklin Station, which is south of this development. Would you mind speaking to that for us?
Me personally, I don't know of any, but there may be some on file that I would have to check our database to see if they've had any phone calls in to make complaints.
Okay.
Be glad to follow up with them.
Okay, but with the stormwater comments, there weren't anything that were included in the...
Nothing was made aware to me at the time.
Okay, thanks. Do you guys have any questions for Carl? No?
I think in the comments, there's a flow test required or a pre-test.
I'm sorry?
There's some question about stormwater. I don't know if there's a pre and post test required. I thought I may have seen that in the notes. Give me one second.
I don't think we had a pre and post test on this one, but there will be a stormwater detention pond on this site, and one of my stipulations asks that they try to connect to an existing infrastructure that's immediately downstream to avoid any surface flooding or anything like that.
Okay. For the pipe-to-pipe connection?
Okay. Are you comfortable with that?
Oh, yeah. We talked about it yesterday, too. Yeah.
Thank you.
Considering this was litigation, is there any special language that I need to add to the motion?
Not that I'm aware of.
I guess I should be asking Debbie.
There is stock, yes, sir.
No? Okay. Go ahead.
I have a question.
Yep.
Are these attached townhomes or condos for sale? with
They're
a
for
cap?
sale. They're for sale. You mean a cap in terms of rentals? Yeah, it's in the stipulation letter. No more than 10%. Yeah, it's the stip letter of March 4th, I think it is.
Yes, March 4th.
I have an extra copy. Do you need to see it? Oh, you have it? Okay. All right. Are there any other questions?
Yes, I could
Yeah,
wait
go
till,
ahead.
typically, I know sometimes there's discussion. I was going to share this as part of the discussion after the motion, but I can share now.
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, there were some comments made with respect to people walking between both communities, people accessing Macklin Station from this townhome community. And so I don't know if your stipulation addressed any type of fencing in between the communities.
But they won't have access because there's no access to Brandon Lee.
Yes, not necessarily car traffic, this was foot traffic, pedestrian.
Right, but there's, and Amy, if you wouldn't mind coming back up.
People cutting in between yards is what I'm sharing, not necessarily.
Oh, I see what you mean. I see. Well, She just clarified on your way up, I'm sorry.
It's all right.
You just got a few extra steps, but no. Again, just to confirm that there is no vehicle traffic that would access from the subdivision below to the new development. But the
Correct.
concern is foot access. Is that, okay.
Yeah, they don't have any formalized pedestrian connection, but people walking between yards, I mean, obviously that's possible.
It might be what?
It might be possible, if there's no fencing in the way that people could walk through yards.
Mhm.
But
And I
there's
think-
no official pedestrian connection shown on the site plan.
Right. And this also has a buffer, but Kevin, if you wouldn't mind coming up, I'm not sure.
I could see this being more so an issue for the new community since you have that shopping center, I don't know if people traverse
But the
that area
shopping
now.
center is right across the street. Are you referring to the public shopping plaza?
The Chick-fil-A post office.
That's above
Yeah,
this community.
yeah.
And again, since this is in litigation, Debbie, if you would mind just keeping me honest, I'm not sure at this point, what can be added, what the process would be since this was agreed upon as a settlement.
Well, any additions would have to be approved, would have to go back and be discussed with the applicant. We typically do not add additional conditions at this point in time because, of course, this had been discussed with the board previously. And this is really more of a technical approval in a public meeting.
Okay.
So I'm just acknowledging that issue was brought up.
Did they have a landscape?
Yeah, there's a 30-foot, and Madam Chair, you're referring to Macklin Station. Macklin Station? Yeah.
The subdivision south.
Yeah, there's a 30-foot landscape buffer there.
But within that
So-
buffer, does it specify that can be either a fence or trees or plantings?
Say that once more.
Within the language, does it say that it's a fence, plantings, trees? Does it define how
For
that
the
buffer is?
landscape buffer is trees.
Just trees?
Let me just take another look, too. Yeah, the 30-foot landscape buffer. Okay. Kevin, would your client be agreeable to a fencing along Brandon Lee Drive and along the east property line of the development?
Yeah, we're not going to let a fence get in the way. I think that the basis for the request, though, is a little bit off-putting for me, in that the basis for the request is that somehow people that are going to buy $300,000 and $400,000 townhomes are less than somebody who lives in another home, and that bothers me.
I agree.
Or if it was $200,000, it's just a different style of living. We're not going to let a fence get in the way, and if that is the difference, I would suggest it be some type of black vinyl-coated chain link fence. I would hate to see a wooden fence in the rear of a property like this that 10 years from now is hard to maintain, but.
Sure. And let me just go back.
It is a full landscape buffer, though.
Pardon?
It is a full landscape
A full
buffer.
landscape buffer?
Which according to code, which is what we're tying it to.
Okay.
Has to have it be 100%, for visual screening. There's a standard that's maintained there, so it's a heavy landscape buffer that will be there.
Okay. You have go ahead.
If I can kind of supplement what Kevin's saying, maybe change something in the language that the landscape buffer, the 30-foot, would be something that would discourage people from walking through. We know there are plantings that,
Sticky bushes, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have those in mind. But if we can go back just a little, I think with the initial application, was that development for a rental community?
Yes.
Okay.
Of seniors.
Of seniors, okay.
I mean, I was going to address that, and it is unfortunate that we do have comments like that made. I was going to ask you if I missed something with respect to the type of housing that was being proposed.
Right.
But it's unfortunate that we do have that assumption made when we do have attached property. And these will be individually for sale, and the price point was shared by the applicant.
Right.
But I do know cut-through traffic is a real concern.
Sure.
Particularly when you're near a desirable place like Chick-fil-A. I'm amazed at how many people will stand in the middle of the street waiting for that Chick-fil-A sandwich. And so, you know, again, I see that being more of an issue for the new community than I see somebody traversing Macklin Station for.
Right, because the people in this development would not need to cut through Brandon Lee to get to Chick-fil-A.
No, ma'am. I'm just putting it out there since the request was made, Commissioner.
Right.
I'm not.
But, you know, go ahead, Commissioner.
I was just going to say, why don't you have the landscape plan and/or fencing come back to you for final approval?
And an OB item.
Have the
The
community.
landscape.
That's fine.
Okay.
Yes, the landscape plan inclusive of consideration of fencing.
Right. And, you know, but before I make that recommendation, you know, I just want to address some of the comments that were shared. And I'm bothered, too, by this mindset that we have that if it's a new development, if it's rental, that automatically is associated with crime. And it really troubles me because there are a great number of rentals in Midtown Atlanta, in Buckhead, and other parts of Cobb County. But it's just that in certain areas, there's this automatic connection to crime when, in all candor, you know, the cost of some rents nowadays, market rent, is more than some of our mortgages. And, you know, it's just, it's going to take a while for us to understand that there are other housing options outside of single-family residences, okay? Condos are apartment-style living. Doesn't necessarily mean that there's going to be more crime, but it is this fear that if you rent, then you are automatically a criminal, because why would you rent if you can afford to buy? That's not everyone's reality for whatever reason. People are at different stages of their life, whether they're scaling down, whether you're a college kid that just don't want the commitment of a house, et cetera. The list goes on. But I am very troubled by that thinking. The traffic, definitely a concern. I can understand that. Even cut through, walk through traffic, I understand that. But this thought that, you know, I have a bunch of criminals living next to me that happen to purchase a $300,000 townhome is just beyond me. But anyhow, Madam Chair, I'll just be prepared to make my motion. But, you know, I am pleased that we were able to reach an agreement that's suitable to all parties, because we've gone back several times, and this is one that I inherited when I was elected, and we were able to see it through, and I think we finally came to a resolve that myself and my fellow commissioners can agree to. But I'm ready to make my motion. I make a motion that OB 10, to approve OB 10 with the following stipulation, and just give me a minute to write this down. Okay, I make a motion to approve OB 10 with the revision to stipulation 15 of the stipulation from Kevin Moore dated March 4th, 2022. there should be a 30-foot landscape buffer adjacent to the existing residentially zoned property, as well as along Brandon Lee Drive, as shown in the reflected on the reference revised plan, to include a landscape plan and/or fencing to be approved by the district commissioner, and the remainder of the paragraph can remain the same. And all other staff comments and recommendations not otherwise in conflict.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Call the question. The motion passes 5-0. Thank you, Commissioners.
Okay, next item on our agenda for other business is other business item number 12 of 2022, which is to consider a reduction of public road frontage and lot size for reflection in luxury homes for property located on the northeast intersection of Pittner Road and Cheatham Road, and on the west side of Cheatham Road in land lot 153 of the 20th District. By way of background, Madam Chair and Board, the Board of Commissioners considers all reductions to minimum public road frontage and minimum lot size pursuant to a code amendment to Section 134-271-7A adopted on February 27, 2018. The subject property is zoned R30 with 38 lots and is required to have 30,000 square foot lot sizes. The applicant is requesting that lots 24, 25, and the lot located at 2586 Pittner Road have lot sizes less than 30,000 square feet, which are 22,517, 22,618, and 21,820 respectively. The lot size reduction is being done to save a circa 1850 farmhouse located at 2586 Pittner Road. Additionally, lots 2 and 3 need reductions to public road frontage from 75 feet to 54 feet and 56 feet respectively to accommodate a curve in the road. If approved, all of the zoning criteria would be met. Is the applicant present? Is the applicant here? Is there anyone here opposed to this item? One opposed. Okay. Madam Chair and Board, the applicant is not present, and there is one person opposed.
Yeah, typically when we have this matter, we know that up front, and we'll take some time to try to reach out to the applicant. This is the last matter to be heard before us, so I'm going to defer to the commissioner to see what you.
You could just say one comment, and that'll help your decision.
I think because it's the end of the meeting, we'll allow for some flexibility if you'd like to make one comment.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson and Commissioners. I'm Kevin Belli. I've been a 27-year resident of Cobb County and 2703 Cheatham Lake Court, which backs up to this property. Do you have the site plan that you could pull up? Forgive me for being ignorant about the proper processes as far as a variance versus a subdivision approval and everything, but if we look at the site plan for this property, well, as we see it on the screen right now, okay, so on this site plan, it's a 172-year-old farm. It's zoned R30 or R40. Let me correct myself. R30. That requires the 30,000 square foot requirements. If you look at the northern portion.
I'm sorry,
to the top,
sir. Yes, there's a comment made. We're kind of going more into the application. I thought.
Well, I'm just saying that these lots aren't zoned properly because they don't show Little Altoona Creek and the floodplain that encompasses these properties.
Okay, let's go ahead and have the zoning manager present this item as it typically would, and we'll give you opportunity to share this so we can have a full discussion with respect to this. Yes, Commissioner Gamble.
But do we want to reach out and contact the applicant? Because the applicant is not here.
Why don't we do that? And
I would
Do we want
suggest
to
a
why don't we
lunch
take
break.
why don't we take a 5-minute break? Somebody can
Okay.
reach out to the applicant and see if they can respond.
Okay.
Yeah. Did you know, you knew you had opposition to this? Thank you and welcome back to our Board of Commissioners zoning hearing this April 19th, 2022. We have other business item 12 in front of us, and John, I'll turn things over to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I did reach out to the applicant, and the person that was supposed to be here did not show up. So I told him that we would probably hold the case until next month.
Okay, Commissioner Gamble?
I'd like to make a motion to hold OB 12, OB 12 until the April
May 17th.
Oh, thank you. May 17th hearing date.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Just for the gentleman who's here, that would give us more time to at least flesh through the concern. This was not on consent, Commissioner Gamble, so I presume you still have interest in holding it.
I do, and it's my understanding that you've worked with Carl Carver.
I talked to him on an email, bringing these issues to the attention. There's a whole plat in the zone.
Sarah, can you mind coming to the mic so?
And sir, I've seen that correspondence. If you would like to make an appointment, Ryan Williams is my assistant, make an appointment, and staff and I will sit down and kind of explain the process to you.
Yeah, because it's a 172 acre or 172-year-old farm. The Historical Preservation Commission hasn't even looked at it. There's floodplains that affect 14 of the 37 proposed lots. There's no information on stormwater runoff, no green space. So you're taking a farm and turning it in a high-density development, and then on top of that, asking for a variance acceptance. It makes no sense. And that's why you hear about the Lost Mountain, City of Lost Mountain, which I'm totally against, but this is obviously why that we go there.
Right, and so please get with my assistant and let's have a meeting and then we can discuss this with you.
So if he doesn't show up next month, because in a court of law, the case would be dismissed or it would be ruled in favor of who showed up. And I don't understand why he didn't come here. He wasted your time. He wasted my time. I probably got a parking ticket. This makes no sense how you could just continue it just because they ignored the date that this was supposed to be heard.
And I can't answer as to what caused the applicant's representative to be late, but it's been the courtesy of the board to essentially hold this case, so we will hold it until the May hearing cycle and then make a determination from there.
Fair enough. Thank you.
All right, we have a motion, a second. Any further discussion, commissioners? I'll call the question. The motion carries 5-0. Thank you. John, do we have anything else for today's agenda? All right, guys, we are officially adjourned. Thank you.